Mater.
Here.
Jim Lozinski.
Here.
Donald Niemer.
Here.
Alderperson Weigel.
Here.
Alderperson Haas.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. First item on the agenda, approve the minutes of the previous meeting and the meeting before that, January 28th and February 9th meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Been moved in second. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. First item, number 2, discussion relative to South 92nd Street and West Greenfield Avenue site, St. Aloysius Church. Patrick, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, tonight we have Brian Randall and Eric Schwenker from Cardinal Capital. They have an accepted offer on the 92nd and Greenfield site, and they would like to introduce themselves tonight to the CDA and outline their path forward on a real incredible project that we've outlined before here to the CDA. They're looking at redeveloping the St. Aloysius area into around 128 market rate units, 22 townhomes. This is all very early in the discussions. It's coming together as a plan, and I'm going to turn it over to them to say a few words tonight to the CDA.
Thank you. Should I be over?
You can go to the small table there, as we refer to the kids' table.
I'm happy to sit at the kids' table. Thank you, everyone. I'm attorney Brian Randall with Davis & Kielthau, 111 East Kilbourne Avenue in Milwaukee. It's my privilege to be back here again, the CDA. I think it's been 2 years. 2019, I was working on the Universal Health Services project, and I was pleased to see construction at 68th and Mitchell is really coming along nicely. So I promise if I drop the mask, you might recognize my smiling face from that a couple of summers ago. But I'm pleased to be here this evening on behalf of Cardinal Capital Management, which is a client that I've been working with recently, most recently on a senior housing project in the city of Wauwatosa. And Eric Schwenker, as Patrick mentioned, is here. Eric is the president of Cardinal Capital, and you may or may not know that they are headquartered in the city of West Dallas on 70th Street. And it's been a company that is really focused on national housing with 10,000 plus units, primarily in the Midwest, but nationally. And Cardinal Capital is really looking to do quality developments in particularly these nearby communities like where they are headquartered. So Eric has been leading Cardinal for a number of years with projects in West Dallas such as the Highland Commons over on Beloit Road, the Whole Health Clinic, which is on Hawley Road, and of course they have the headquarters on 70th Street. The developments overall that Cardinal has approached, I mentioned in Wauwatosa, we just had a senior housing, age-restricted approved. Cardinal also has done market rate, multifamily, apartments, if you will, regular housing, other supportive housing for veterans and for those recovering from mental illness, housing that may be supportive for those who have intellectual and development disabilities, and those who have hearing and vision loss, as well as some affordable housing options. So Cardinal really runs the gamut with what it can provide in the right fit for the right community for the right site. Here at the St. Aloysius site, and I appreciate staff put up a site plan, I think that's one that even predated my involvement on this, so I'm going to call it 2 site plans ago, and we really appreciate Patrick saying it is conceptual and it's a moving process. We're here at a very early stage in our design and site planning process, and we know that we're going to have to be creative in the site plan to really make sure we're plugging in appropriately to the existing community, taking advantage of some of the thoroughfares and where maybe high traffic and opportunities for some density could be, as well as working around the Gonzaga Village Senior Living Center, which we're not under contract to buy. It will stay where it is, so that's why in the upper right-hand corner it's slightly grayed out. That facility will be the same as it is today. So we're really talking the north to south portion of the site, and possibly doing some multi-story, multi-family buildings up on Greenfield. And as you move south, those are the purple building, I think is probably the church current footprint. We're looking at demolition. We're looking at whether it's more likely, rather than try to adaptively reuse that, to bring a new apartment building to that hard corner and really embrace the corner and give it a good street presence. You have a U-shaped building there, which then starts to step down in the site, and then potentially some townhomes on the far south. So again, that's a conceptual site plan. We're at a very early stage, but Patrick was correct. We are under contract to purchase the site. I'm working with developers as I do. I know important benchmark steps are making sure we have the ability to buy the land and that we have a deal with the seller. Now we can put a lot of time and effort into the site planning. Our goal will be certainly to work with your staff. It's a very good staff and something that we will be taking very seriously. And then, of course, engaging with the alders for the district and the community outreach as the case may be. I know Cardinal has always worked well with your staff on their website. I notice ubiquitous John Stiebel is shown here as far as what their company and their history is all about. Mayor Devine is in that group shot. Eric and I were talking about the Highland Commons and probably the corporate headquarters opening. So it's something that Cardinal is so proud of, the Wauwatosa connections, that it's on their website. And we know that those are the types of steps we'll take going forward with your staff on this project and the alders and those who it may be involving. With this body, we anticipate that we may need a tax increment finance request. We know there will be a lot of discussion with staff to start that off, but the potential demolition costs, the structured parking to make sure we're not impacting the streets and surface parking, things like that, would be the types of things we may be looking for TIF assistance and meeting that but-for test. The advantage here in many respects is that it's starting at a zero base value because it's tax exempt property right now. So the fact that we might be able to capture some increment to jumpstart what we're looking to do, but then also potentially revitalize the corridor and put it on the tax rolls ultimately is what our goal is, and I think that's a mutual goal with the city. The final thing to say is that we are anticipating a market rate project on this. We're going to, as I said, creatively work on the site plan to present a variety of housing types and sizes, again illustrated by townhomes, apartment buildings, and that would bring market rate units to the area and add to the city's tax base. Being a tax exempt parcel right now, it will go on the tax rolls, and we look forward to the privilege of paying the city taxes for years to come. We are putting together our team. I think AG Architecture might be on that plan, or at least that's who we're going to be working with. I just worked with them in Wauwatosa. Cardinal has done neighborhood outreach when the time is right and necessary. They have me to be a good resource and work with your capable staff. So Eric, unless I forgot anything and what we wanted to do by way of introduction, Eric said I'm going to really keep the mask on, and Brian, you do the talking, but by no means, if there are questions, he will be glad to speak. We'll continue to work with your staff. We know the CDA has had this site on its agendas, and it's an important site, so we will take that role very seriously ourselves and work on this important project and look forward to that cooperative relationship in the months to come.
Right.
Do we have any questions from the authority to Brian or Eric?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Alderman Hank Weigel.
Eric, you said this is like 2 generations ago on the site plan. I mean, what are the substantive changes that you're talking about?
If what I'm seeing correctly on that, it looks like the church building in purple is contemplated on that plan to remain.
To stay in that, what you said that
There was
was
some evaluation, maybe a community needs study on doing a senior center or just other ways an old church building could be used. As we've started to look into it and we'll do full due diligence, the current thinking is that would be a better site for an apartment building, maybe in an L-shaped configuration. Again, we do have to work around the Gonzaga Village Senior Living, but to really bring the building up to the corner and do it as an L shape. The unit counts, I don't know exactly where we are on that. Those are the kinds of things that the development team will work through, but we're talking things like 3 to 4 story buildings, but certainly stepping down as it comes to the south, maybe with the 2-story townhome type of presentation.
And would Cardinal develop and then operate, or typically is it develop and then sell to somebody else?
You want to answer that?
You know, our attitude always is we don't flip property, unless, and we are there for the long run.
Okay.
So, yeah, the goal is to make it to death and past. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Keep it going for the next generation.
Any other questions? Karen, go ahead.
On a side note, since I grew up there, made my first communion, my confirmation, I'm just curious if the pews are still in the church, they may be gone already, and if that's something you'd open up to the community if you are going to demolish it, to say if someone would want to acquire something, or how that would flow.
Yeah, I can, within the contract, the church requested certain objects. I can't tell you precisely what. That was the last part of the contract, that they requested a variety of things that they wanted to hold on to or maintain. There may be many significant things that they didn't wish to maintain that, yeah, I mean, we're with you, that we would like those things to not be summarily destroyed, and to the extent that they can be used by other people, then that would be our goal.
Okay.
And I would just volunteer that maybe we'll work through staff if we get to those points of what we identify, and if then there are opportunities that we have a good point of contact with the city where not everyone is fielding those kinds of questions, but we can certainly, as Eric said, identify what those opportunities may be.
Oh, I went to grade school there, too.
Okay.
I missed that part.
Any other questions for each of the gentlemen? No? That's it? And I
We
think-
greatly appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you. Yes, our next steps are going to be working on a schedule and a timetable. We'll be, as I said, working with staff on that. We know that the site is split zoned and may need some rezoning. We need to work on all the details of the project, but the opportunity to at least introduce ourselves and introduce the direction that we're going, we wanted to take that invitation up. So we do appreciate that, and we look forward to coming back.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and we appreciate
see
the
you, Kevin.
information. Thank you.
It should be easier than Granite Hills was.
We hope so. We'll see.
Okay, we'll go to item number 3, resolution to approve amendment administration plan for Section 8 Housing Voucher, Choice Voucher Program. Patrick.
Mr. Chairman, the CDA is the entity that oversees our housing authority, or is our housing authority. And with that, we have an administrative plan for the Section 8 program. And for us to conduct open enrollment here, which is scheduled at the end of April, we have to make modifications or update our admin plan on how the process would occur. And up above are the main proposed amendments. I think in your packet, you received a copy of these. These are also in consultation with HUD. We meet monthly with them on the phone, discuss how our program is going, etc. Right now, our waiting list is down to around 60 people. It's going quick, but it's also aged. And one of the things HUD noticed is that since our waiting list last time was 1,500 people, when you get down to the bottom of that list, it starts to age, etc. So they're asking us to do this more often. So they suggested maybe a waiting list of 800 participants. We do this all online. We will have a space in here where people can come in and do their application, but it's online, and then we do a lottery type of system based on the preferences that are in the packet that we provided. We also have to identify what media outlets we will be putting this. We put it out in English and Spanish to meet our demographic profile of our city. We also are updating it that we would purge our list. Instead of 24 months, every 2 years, we would do this every year to 18 months so that we keep the information fresh. People often move, don't notify us, and then we call them off the list. We're sending mails or emails, and it's coming back. So we need to just keep our information fresh to keep our participation up in the program. One of the key things is local preferences. In the past, we had a series of these. HUD has gotten a little bit more particular on the use of preferences. You would have to do a lot of scientific research to prove that you need these, etc. What we're recommending are these preferences that you see listed here. That we would, a household that is elderly, families who are homeless. That's a big initiative under the HUD currently, is to address homelessness. Families, as you can see here, that have disabilities, surviving spouses of veterans, and the big one is, the preferences to those who reside in West Dallas or may be impacted by foreclosures and things like that. So those are our recommended changes to the administrative plan. Tonight, the CDA would say that these are acceptable to us, and then we have to put it out for a 30-day comment period, and then we'll line up with our open enrollment in April. So tonight, you're recommending or approving these modifications to our administrative plan.
Oh, okay. Do we have approval for the resolution? Second. Been moved for approval and second. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Alderman
Sorry
Weigel.
for the new guy with all the questions. Is that a prioritized list? Are they all weighted equally? I guess that's, I mean, you still have 5 different preferences there.
We would usually make the families of West Allis the top priority.
Okay,
And then
so this is not a, this is
I don't
not
have
the
these in any
order.
particular order,
Okay.
but when we go through, we do weight it so that it picks out how that goes first. But it's all by lottery, so you.
I understand that,
You could be a preference in number 10,000 on the application list, and you could become number 1.
Right.
Because of the preference and also the lottery system.
And because you're purging the list every year, you're going to be opening the list every year then?
Not purging the entire list, there could still be carried forward each year, that list. So when we purge, we're not purging everyone out, we're purging anybody that doesn't respond. We send a communication
see.
out and
Okay.
say, if you don't respond, that your information is correct. We do that twice, I believe, then we take them off the waiting list.
Get rid of the deadwood, and then you,
Yes.
and then when the list gets shorter
Then we have to
so-
do a complete open enrollment, and we have to officially close that list,
Okay.
the prior list, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Like the 60 we have now, we have to officially close that list and start the new waiting list.
Any other questions regarding this item? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 4, resolution approved development agreement by and between West Allis Brewing Properties LLC and the Community Development Authority for sale, land, and establishment of a brewery at 6749 to 5100 West National Avenue, 6700 West National Avenue, and a portion of 6700 West Mitchell Street. Patrick, you have the floor.
Mr. Chairman, as you're aware, the CDA already has conducted the public hearing on the sale of this land. We are now in the process of doing the public hearing, or not public hearing, the development agreement. We were waiting to get bank financing secured for the bank, or for the brewery, and that has been achieved. Last week, they received a commitment from Citizens Bank that would help get this project going. Just as a side note, our staff worked with our consultant and prepared packets, and during COVID here, had sent out over 25 packets to banks to help this business receive financing. We got one bank. So it's a challenging market out there for lending. And also the hospitality industry has been hit quite hard. So we're moving forward. Things look good. They see the upside of the changing in the market. So that's a positive sign. There are 3 business partners involved with the brewery. It would be called Oak Brewery. The real estate entity that would purchase the property is West Allis Brewing Property LLC, and then they would have Oak Brewing Company LLC. That would be the business occupying the space. The budget, if you factor in all the equity and the lending, et cetera, is around $3.3 million. It's a brewery and entertainment venue. The reason I say it's 3.3 million, you factor in working capital, et cetera. When you look at the overall budget for financing, it's around 2.9 million. As-built appraisal came in at 1.290. So when it's all renovated, improved, the whole site, it's around 1.2. As is the condition that we're selling, the appraisal came back at $500,000. Our purchase price that we have agreed to at this point is $500,000. I say at this point, please stay tuned. When we work out the development agreement, and it's listed in here, we are working on the easements, cross-access easements to the site. As you're aware, the CDA owns the property to the west, which is 6771 West National Avenue. We also own the parcel that's 16, I believe 7 Star West Mitchell, which is the parking lot that's to the south, located down in this general area. And under this agreement, we are selling a portion of this site to the brewery for additional parking. And then we're also selling this 0.47 acre parcel here. The big thing about easements is to be able to pass through here with trucks and customers going through here, and also having a cross-access agreement for parking. Same thing here for this business when this becomes developed, that they can park here or down here, etc. When we look at the participation of the city into this deal, we've had to do some things in order to leverage the financing and the private investment. They are asking around for $250,000 of financing. Now, we said before, it's $500,000 to purchase the property. We would get $400,000 from the bank at closing. What we're offering is a term that's often used in real estate, is taking paper back of a note of $100,000. And you can see here, we would structure that as 25-year amortization, 3.25%. We have to match the same terms as the SBA. The next portion is a TIF loan of $100,000. This is to help with equipment and renovation of the site, and that's at 3.25%, the same terms. And then, because it's along National Avenue, we have a program that if you do entertainment, food type of niche businesses, that we provide up to $50,000 for equipment that's forgiven, 20% of that on the anniversary of the note. So the other part of this deal came to us through a broker that we have a relationship with, and the agreement was, if this all came together, that we would provide a commission for that deal. So we would pay that commission. And then we have an environmental case closure. Perfect Screw does not have the site does not have case closure yet. The 0.47 acre parcel has closure, and as well as the parking lot that's located to the south. I just want you to note that. I'm going to come back to that topic here in a minute. And then, as we talked about previously at the CDA, are the utility lines. There is a main line utility that goes along the front part of the building and then proceeds south to Mitchell. You can see the poles here. We would pay the $132,000 to have these poles be placed underground and this main line utility removed from the front part of the building to go south and behind the building, etc. That way we get that buried. And that's more of a global site infrastructure type of improvement versus just this brewery. It's something that you can't really leverage for a bank. It's a large cost for a small business. So when you factor it across the TIF, it would be a good infrastructure cost to take care of. We do have one issue that came up as of late last week, and I'm still, we can go into closed session, talk about the details of this, but this 0.47 acre parcel does have closure. But when you seek closure for this site, we had to provide the entire site plan to the DNR. And when you put landscaping in to meet our community standards, the DNR has a rule that if there's impacts, you have to remove the top 18 inches of soil and put clean soil back into those areas. We learned the estimate that just came in yesterday is around $160,000 to remove soil in the landscape areas to meet the DNR's requirements to get closure. So we're looking at how to address that particular item. It's we've said we would provide case closure in a bankable, financeable site. This month was not in their budget, and we just learned last week that this would have to get taken care of. Now, there's EPA revolving loan funds that we can loan to take care of that matter. We have around $700,000 in EPA funds to loan. Or we can look at a reduction in the purchase price, and we can talk a little bit about that in closed session. But that is an outstanding issue that we have not capitalized yet on how to deal with that dirt. This is not uncommon. I think I must have the pictures in closed session, but it was a salvage yard in the front. It was an industrial area. There's impacts in the dirt. And whether it was the brewery or any other type of development within the landscape areas, we'd have to manage those soils, or at least provide some sort of incentive to the developer to take care of the dirt to get the closure that they need to meet bank financing. So,
Can the landscaping be done on top of the cap?
those are things we're reviewing. You would have to build up the landscape beds.
Raised beds?
Raised beds, but then at the same time, then you're building things up, the 18.
It's cheaper than 160,000 though.
Yeah, those are the things that we're evaluating. I don't have all the information on how to manage that yet. It's the same thing with the volleyball courts. It also gets into a little bit of the grading and the site like that. So we're evaluating that. The number came in on Monday. We're here tonight, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we bridge this gap now? In fact, the bank financing changed today too, and I'll talk about that in closed session. So in the end, when we look at the TIF plan, this is something that we're evaluating as well. You can see on the bottom here, we said projected incremental value of 10 million, and I think we had a projected current value of 1 million, projected value of 11. This number is actually double. With the UHS hospital, it's a $40 million development. We estimated that at a 50% of that for value, so it'll be around $20 million. So from a TIF perspective, I think our TIF is going to be looking pretty good. I don't want to say, you know, it's going to be less than these years yet. The only reason, we still have 6771 to address, and that's going to take some creative financing to get that to the finish line. So, but at the end of the day, I think when we have around $2 million in debt in that TIF right now. I want to put the model together to see how this all pencils out. The brewery is not going to influence that number too much in terms of we're getting some money for the purchase and then we're doing loans to get payments back for that. But the $132,000 for the utility line and things like that, and maybe the dirt,
It adds up.
it will add up and be adjusting. But when you have a $20 million property just to the south that has not been pledged in terms of the increment coming from it, it should be very helpful. That's all I have on Oak Brewery. We can discuss.
We'll
take
just
action.
hold
it in time.
hold that until we get into closed session.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
question for Patrick. Has our finance department looked at these numbers?
I've been briefing Jason along the way. We're still planning a meeting tomorrow to review the TIF itself, based on the new numbers that we received, and see how that looks. But we've been in communication over all these numbers. I don't think I've kept anything back on the numbers.
Still preliminary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we're going to hold 5 and 6 for closed session. And we'll go to item number 7, consideration relative report on redevelopment initiatives. Patrick, you have the floor.
You might recall we talked about Holiday Inn Express in the past, and how it's performing based on COVID. This is probably one of the hardest industries hit on COVID. You know, restaurants are also been hit, and bars, et cetera, but in some cases they were able to sell beer to go or food to go. It's hard to sell room nights to go. So when you look at what other communities are doing to address that, we've been looking at how banks are dealing with it, et cetera. If you look at how our TIF is doing, we have a value on the hotel of around $9 million and $53,000. $9,053,800 for the value of the hotel. The TIF agreement had a guaranteed value of $12,500,000. So the way the TIF is performing, at this point, it's a little early, but it is underperforming. The hotel would have over a $10 million value in our projections. And there's still an outlet for development, which is set in our projections to start in 2022 for construction. But at this point, I wanted to show you that we're reviewing this, how this TIF is performing, and the developer has asked, is there any relief that we could provide on the guaranteed value, the $12.5 million? And if you look here, because of that $12.5 million, they actually end up with a shortfall payment to the city, you can see in this particular area, to us, based on not making that number. Now, that's one thing that they've asked in other financial assistance. I just bring this to your attention that we're working on it, but we may come back to the CDA and look at how we can restructure the TIF. One thing that we have is time on the TIF. We might be able to offer them another year to help pay back that note to the bank, but or reduce that guarantee down, maybe for a few years until they can get that value back up based on operations. But the industry itself, the hotel industry, is operating below that. And this is just an unfortunate circumstance. If they would have hit it out of the gate with the Democratic Convention last July and they would have been forming, we wouldn't have this question. But when you're operating at 20%, and we met with them last Friday and discussed their financials and how they're working with the bank, they have gone to interest only till December. They have a reserve account that is dwindling because you still got to turn lights on, you still got to be there. They've had some good days, and they've had some strong, limited weeks in terms of sales. So we want to make sure that as a community that we can work with developers, but it's also a little bit of unfortunate circumstances. So there's nothing to decide tonight, but I wanted to show you that this TIF is challenged based on COVID.
Mr. Clark, you have a question?
Yes, has the hotel across from State Fair Park come to us and asked us for similar help?
It's an interesting situation here. So with the federal government programs, most of it's based on year-over-year sales. Since they weren't in operation prior, they cannot apply for any of the federal assistance.
The one in Lincoln had no history to look back
Right.
at.
So Hampton did, and the Hampton was able to apply to state
PPP money, yeah.
in the state or PPP funds to help their particular situation. They have not reached out to our department for assistance. The buildings are similarly valued, though. We looked at that the other day, too, just to see as a comparison.
Do you know what their occupancy rate is?
Based on the STAR report, what we're hearing it is around 20 to 30% occupancy. That's way below where they would be, too.
Given that bleak picture, and we'll probably get into this in closed session, but the facility over here at Dallas Chalmers, that hotel continues to languish, correct?
I have an update on that here in closed session, but on that particular hotel, I think that one will break ground by summer. There is a break in the way the lenders are looking at it, and they have received a commitment from or a term sheet from a bank. So that's a positive sign.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Alderman Weigel.
On the outlots on Lincoln, is there any indications on possible uses there?
So in our TIF plan, we had around $3.5 million booked for a development on that. We have not, there's been another use that was looking at the site for around a $6 million project. That hasn't come to fruition yet. Nor do I think they might be exploring other sites. But it is a nice site. There's a broker on that parcel on Lincoln, so. And there's people investing in that corridor. Right behind the Sleep Wellness Institute, it has an eye doctor looking at it, and I think there's a development that will be coming in the near future for the Baker Square site.
Oh.
So that's a positive sign. I think, and then the other items under other development initiatives. The last meeting, we kind of talked motor castings. As of today, we believe that 133947 was purchased along with the office building by an advanced manufacturing firm. I just was before the meeting here on the phone with them. Now they're looking to get architects and secure financing, et cetera. But this is a positive that this company is buying this. And with that, when they close, they want to tear down the balance of the site, the current owner of the foundry. There's also another group that reached out, that's a demolition firm and an environmental firm that raises buildings and then gets the site all set for a private development. And they had a partner out of St. Louis that wanted to look at the site for multifamily. So there is, continues to be interest in the site. That's positive. I don't think, that's all I have on other development initiatives. Do you have any questions on any of the items listed there?
I'd like you to put that city yards, the Morgan 116th site back on here so we can talk about it.
Okay.
Maybe the condos have already started.
I don't think so.
I drove by today. Nope.
I'm just off the record, I'm expecting a environmental report on the site. And once we have that, I hope to walk the site with the consultant to determine where these areas are. She was describing things to me and I don't have a reference.
Thank you.
So that's a little bit of an update.
Any other questions regarding the, if not, we'll go into closed session. for agendas 2, 4, 5, and 6. The committee may convene in closed session pertinent to the provisions of Section 19.85/1/E of the state statutes for the purpose of delivering, investing of public funds whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The committee may reconvene in open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of its agenda. Would you take roll call, please, Patrick?